Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a call to order for the Governance Committee. The time is now 5:04 p.m. In attendance in person, we've got myself. Online, we got committee member Michael Macaron, Mr. Albert Benahan, board member. In attendance, we have Dr. Baldwin and Superintendent Parent. First item of business is the approval of minutes dated March 15th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve? Macaroni, you gotta come off mute.
I approve.
And I'll second. Any discussion, edits? None, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, the minutes are approved. Next item up on the agenda, I see Mr. Traver coming in now. Next item on the agenda is discussion and planning the creation of the school moving policy. A little background information. We all saw what happened with the Harding after the break-in, the live stream. It brought to light the need to actually tighten up our policies and create some new policies in order to prevent this from ever happening again. We saw some help from CABE and other places. There's really nobody that has an actual policy in effect for such a thing.
If I could just,
Yes, Dr. Wong.
Manchester Public Schools in Manchester, Connecticut have policy 3270. The 3000 series, as you know, holds the business operations functions. And they do have a business school facilities closing a school policy.
Shutdown procedure.
Yeah.
Could you send that? I'll put it on the screen and so we can look at it a little bit.
I could send it, I guess, to Sammy.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just download it.
Yeah, I don't really anticipate putting something together today.
No.
just sketch it out, but as much information as we could find and parse pieces from, we're probably gonna have to parse pieces from everywhere to satisfy our needs as a district.
There also is a survey out with the Greater Council of Schools. They sent one out on our behalf in the area. Still has a couple of days left to try to get as much information as possible in regards to procedures. So once I have that, I'll share that with the committee as well.
And you know what? And as I review this, it's more about the decision-making related to redistricting and having to close the school and
Right,
relocate.
yeah.
It doesn't have really what we're looking for in terms of
Right.
the 2018 Harding closure.
Right, and
So I'm not going to share it.
okay. And that was online with the Great City Schools as well. A couple of them, they were looking in there. We've got similar to what Dr. Baldwin was saying. It's like school closings and we got a lot of disposition of equipment. I got something from Massachusetts. They got something closed. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just the getting rid of the assets in the building, which would have to be integrated into any new policy anyway. I mean, basically, we need a policy that's referring to some sort of checklist to come down and a timeline of closing. Ms. Parent?
So one of the things when we're thinking about this, specifically with the responsibilities of the Board of Education, it has to do with the materials that are within the building, what we're going to be utilizing, what we're going to be discarding, what that process looks like, how we're going to be utilizing facilities to do that. As far as you talked about a checklist, and then specific timelines about
Yes.
when that's going to happen, who's going to be responsible for that, the actual date of the move, who's going to be doing that, and then the actual checking of the building to ensure that it's been completed appropriately with documents for some signatures. So when Dr. Baldwin and I were discussing this earlier, we talked about drafting some documents that could be used for the checklist. So, and then we can identify who will be the staff within the context of Board of Ed, who will be signing off on that, who will be doing the final walkthrough after the move has taken place, and then also, as the last piece, what would be the timeline or the procedure around handing off keys back to the city and what that would look like as well.
Right. Yeah, definitely it needs to. And there's a lot of working pieces. So I suggest today we probably should just actually sketch a guide, like a guiding principle towards the school moving process. Because that's it. There's gonna have to probably be two different policies, because I don't foresee one policy being able to solve every situation. Because if we're closing a school and we're not moving, there's gonna be a different process.
Right.
Because the first process in, let the record reflect, Mr. Rob Traber is in attendance now. Robert, attendance. Good way. You know, the parking's a mess. So as far as sketching a skeleton out, getting rid of the assets, I think we need to find out some rules around the, how to get rid of grant materials, grant funded materials. If we have stuff with grants, there might be certain disposition, requirements behind them. City purchasing ordinances may have a little something in there as well that we have to look at. We have to look at all these things, and being that this is a very new policy, we're gonna have to have it before we let through CABE first, see if there's anything wrong with it, and before we really foul of any legal issues. If there's anything we're gonna have to buy legal, but not, I don't want legal every step of the way, because it's kind of pricey. I think we as a committee could avoid most of the legal traps through common sense and reading comprehension. But the nitty gritty, we might have to get a final review from legal before we put it in place. And that's important, especially with a new policy, because as you'll see at one of the next items, why it's important to check with legal before we do these things.
You know, if I could just make a recommendation around this policy and even the title, school moving, you know, that's what we're talking about, is sort of the checklist and the procedures that we put in place to secure the building and the furniture, fixture, equipments, and then to actually be able to relocate the occupants to a new setting. Perhaps we just title it Construction and Relocation of a School.
Okay. Sounds good.
Because this incident came to us due to school construction.
Correct.
And the overarching policy, we could write a very brief policy, but as both you and Ms. Perrin have shared, the challenge is that all the checklists, the parties related to accountability and timeline. So I think the policy framework is really should reflect the board's commitment to safe, clean, healthy schools. The policy should reflect the board's commitment to maintaining and developing and funding state-of-the-art facilities for our scholars and to help advance our vision of the graduate. And that's the policy. And then the regulations behind it
Correct.
are going to be that
Right.
we have a liaison on the city school building committee.
Mhm.
That's has to be the first part, because there is a school building committee that oversees the grant, the construction grant, the contractors, the timeline. And so I think that would be step one in the regulation.
We've got representation on the school building committee, and Ms. Perrin, I believe. I think we got 4 or 5 people on the committee.
So
Mhm.
on the committee is myself, Mr. Banahan, and Ms. Brown.
Mhm.
We don't have a representation from IT. I think
Mr. Garcia is on it as far as building committee, but there's no one from IT that I'm aware of.
4 or 5.
Mr. Banahan, am I speaking incorrectly? If there's a member from IT that's on the school building committee?
No, in school committee it's me and Miss Brown only.
I think
Mr.
you
Garcia.
might want to do a check-in. I'll make sure we got full representation.
Jeff, we don't have anyone from IT on the school building committee, do we?
So the way it works is I work directly with the school building committee and we develop the plans and designs. But typically what happens is facility kind of takes the lead on that. We just advise and do that stuff.
Yeah, but not on the monthly meetings, right? There's no.
Oh, no, not in the month.
Okay, so you guys
I thought.
Attended, Dr. Johnson had me go to it. And then
Because I remember you being there. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
I thought I was, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, because I remember Jeff had been there. Yeah, so definitely we have the liaisons in there. And I think we're gonna have to actually coordinate with the city as well to further your point. If anybody else got anything, jump right in, because I'm not really turning my head so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry to make you do that too. Maybe I should.
No, that's fine. The sun is gonna move eventually.
Eventually. That's why I'm on this.
Speaking of school building, I remember this issue when they opened this library. No, I'm trying to catch where you're at on this.
Right, we're very much in infancy.
I heard the title change. I like the title change, but I do know that years ago I explored at what point would we want input? And now it's not relocation, a relocation issue, and it's not an issue that was triggered by the Harding problem, but an issue of this building and other buildings that we were building at the time. When would we want input from appropriate members of the community? What it was the opening of Bataya, and the fact that the builder had put in a 24-inch rail around the inside of that lobby up on the second floor. And they then did a tour shortly before opening with, building staff, who walked around and said, oh, no, you can't, you need a higher rail here. You need to do this there. And then some of the pragmatics.
Right, yeah. And
So-
let me interrupt. I apologize, but that's beyond the scope of the agenda. item.
Okay.
And we, that.
I wasn't sure whether that was the policy,
Right.
since it wasn't spelled out in what was it.
Right,
the pack.
that would be on the new building construction. If you want to discuss that, you could have that referred out at the next board meeting, or we.
Is this only, then is this only, does this involve renovations?
No, this involves, the agenda item is creation of school building decommission policy and a school moving policy. This is related to.
Okay, there's the school moving part that I was not sure of,
School- right,
and I heard the
school moving.
relocation part, but I wanted to make sure that,
Nothing with new construction, nothing like that.
Okay.
It's like, once the new construction's done,
but I'm not just focusing on new construction, I'm also raising renovations.
right, yeah, and it's all disposition of assets as well. Renovations would fall under
Okay,
new construction and,
all right, I wasn't sure.
Okay.
So it's just the
right,
disposition of
yeah,
assets.
if you have an interest in those items, we could refer them to the committee. But
Yeah, it would be a
down the
future
line
thing. It
or
would be a
whatnot.
future item. I agree. Just wasn't sure from the title.
Mr. Benahan?
And no question at this moment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Macaron? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Mr. Macaron, you should have been first.
No questions. Joe, thank you.
All right, yeah, so this thing's a monster.
I think though, in terms of agenda item 2, the school moving policy, I think, we're thinking that it's school construction and relocating to a new facility, and that we want to develop practices and guidelines to help us make sure that when we relocate to a new facility, that we don't end up in the position that we've just experienced. And that's not uncommon in policy in boards of ed. Boards of ed create policy sometimes, obviously in response to legislative changes and mandates, in response to aspirational things, but also very much so in response in a reaction. And so we
React.
realize that we need to react. And so I think we could, for the next meeting, Ms. Perrin and I meet weekly. We could have a very broad draft to share for the next meeting of a policy that's more sort of sharing the board's commitment to safe, clean, healthy schools, to advancing equity and our vision of the graduate and the role that facilities play in that. And then we could also, to both your point and Ms. Perrin's point, put some items down that we can further flush out at committee here. Some sort of checklists and who we think is responsible and what the timeline is. And then really sort of work on that draft in the next session.
Yeah, Ms. Perrin? That's okay.
Dr. Baldwin stole all my thunder. She just put it in different words. But I was going to talk about creating that skeletal framework to be able to do that. And just have something to present to say, what are our thoughts around this and what we want to add, what we want to change to that. Because I think we definitely need a working document. And by the time we meet again,
Yes.
we definitely should have the information that's shared from, the Council of Greater City Schools to be able to help feed that as well.
Right, yeah, I was gonna suggest something similar, but in the form of a small work group, including a board member and maybe some staff. Because I think you're gonna need input from other departments as well as we develop this. If I'm not mistaken, definitely gonna need facilities, we're definitely gonna need somebody to reach out to the city on the city side to make sure we don't run afoul of any purchase ordinances. We gotta see what we are obligated to do under the city charter. And as well as the state charter with the, as I mentioned before, the grant funded items. I don't know how many new funded items are coming up in the school in Bassick that still have a useful life or whatever have you, but we're not only writing this for the transfer of Bassick, but for future schools as well.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. I agree with these. I think specifically speaking about those grant funded items, I think the most important piece, because, working with grants, the items that are bought by the school purchased through grants, they belong to the school at that point. So, if the life or the longevity of that is still usable, of course, we should move it. And I think one of the things that has to be determined is what are we going to say is going to be usable and not just left, to not to be left in a building or not to be utilized somewhere else in the district to help save some monies, because that was some of the things that we saw
Absolutely.
with the existing one. And I think we have to do a very good job of making that determination. Just because we're getting a new construction doesn't mean that we need all new items within the context of the building. And it will help us to be able to make that determination. And if we want to look at timelines as far as how long we've had items, what is going to be moved as far as curriculum is going to be, furniture pieces, things in different main parts of the buildings, or, what are we going to actually purchase that needs to be as part of that new construction? I think that truly has to be outlined.
Right, and as you're thinking about it and going through it, we need to look at also inventory and what we got. The inventory process should probably be one of the first things in the timeline, because we need to know what we have before we need to know or get rid of, and we also need to I suggest something like actually when Mr. Postolowski first came on, he it's funny because he had a little trouble wresting the money out of the budget. It was like a relatively small item, like $300 for what do you call that?
Oh, a scanner.
Yeah, to scan and
Mhm.
skew all them items. Maybe I don't know, have somebody go through on a basically big ticket items and just log it into the system or something like that. I know it'd probably be very labor intensive.
Labor intensive. It definitely sounds like,
But
but it should already be somewhere there.
Yeah.
So the question would really be, because when we purchase items through the purchase orders, we have to have an inventory of what we've bought.
correct.
Otherwise, those purchase orders are never cleared. So they have to be somewhere. What we have to determine is what that system is and how it's being utilized to be able to talk about the viability of the inventory that we have versus what we need.
Just listening.
Yeah, I know, definitely. And there's a lot of disposal processes. And here I got could you bring up the first and the additional information, recycling school furnitures fixtures from the mass.gov?
What are you looking
I
at?
think I sent, I put you on the email. Check the email. No? Video conferences?
Oh, send it to me. Send it to video back.
What did I send it to?
Send it to Marini.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I sent it to
Oh,
video conference.
okay. Sam Marini.
I'll send it to you. Where is it?
What are we looking at?
One of the last emails I sent. In. It says additional information in the packet.
Second piece that came out just this afternoon, late this afternoon?
Correct, yeah. I just sent that in.
Yep. I didn't get a chance to go through. Okay, so,
Yeah, it's just a link.
yep. And the second link you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
It's the first link. Hold on, let me send it to everybody.
I have it. I got it.
Let's see the email. I have trouble getting into my email. Apologies.
Do you know which one? Because you sent two. Was the first email or the second?
It was the email.
Excuse me, Mr.
Was that-
Sokolovic, if you
Yes,
give me
it's that-
just one moment, I'm adding it right now and I can send it, I can email it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Pulling it up, you're very welcome.
In all fairness, I did send this basically very last minute.
It's about 4:00.
Yeah.
I had gone through the
Oh,
whole other
okay.
packet. And then I was looking at something. I go, where'd that come from?
Right, yeah. Because as I'm coming, I'm still looking for policies and things to help us out. So this I just probably found out. I was on the phone with you when I found it. I think about
You were
it.
doing work, you said. Are you looking at the school furniture fixtures?
Yes,
You want to open that?
yes.
What did you want to see?
School furniture and fixtures,
The first
the
one.
first link. Mr. Benahan, you have a question, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I received that. That's the second package that Ms. Arlene sent it to us. So I just want to remind you, I don't know if you remember when I did my first student and family committee in the City Hall 305, and I was speaking, and one of the teachers came with a student talking about recycle. Do you remember that? I
Yes.
guess 4 years back, 4 years back. And that teacher have amazing plan how to recycle, how to have the school get fund and stuff like that. I don't know if you still remember that.
Yeah, that was a recycle. I remember that very well.
Yeah,
That was, a student wanted to come into school, start a whole recycling program in the district, and unfortunately, it ended up, as most things do, too expensive for the district.
Mhm.
But, yeah, basically what's got, here we go. It's at the top, reading. Okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is basically from Massachusetts. This is what Massachusetts uses to get rid of some of this inventory surplus items and all that. And this is, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's maybe because it's one of the only ones I could find, but it could be helpful.
Okay.
Of course, the city could use part of this because we're not incurring it. I don't anticipate us trying to incur any kind of costs in dumpsters and all that. But we can limit that cost by getting rid of as much stuff as we can,
Mhm.
either for a profit for the school system for additional funds to use, or a net zero cost as far as having somebody come in who wants the leftover stuff. And they start with they got two things. The values that, can we scroll up, Sam? I'm sorry, Mr. Maurice. Can we scroll down at the values? Yeah, you see the values right there? Go back.
Know the rules. Is the heading.
Yeah, and yeah, and you see those two under there, they're like,
Values at less than.
because there's rules that guide them. Those are the rules that I'm worrying about here with the city and the local to make sure we don't run afoul of anything here. Then also valued at less than 10, and valued more than 10. I don't know what the numbers will end up being over here. And plus we would need another one for grant funded items. The quotes and everything and that's for disposal, that'll be up to the city. But as far as anything we could pull out, like we could use moving service. Who handles the moving services now between if when the new school is being built? Who handles moving the equipment and whatever we're using from one school to another.
So what they've done in the past, according to Mr. Garcia, is that they have engaged they did a quote, of course, basically a bid to try to get, the most reasonable moving company to do so. And that's what they've done. So there's not specifically one company that is being utilized to do that. Now, if things aren't too heavy, there are people who within facilities who move more smaller items, but the major pieces, they'll use
The major
a
pieces.
company to do that.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're gonna have with the next school coming, Harding, Bassick / BMA. A lot of those permanent fixtures are gonna take specialists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and we gotta, wow, I'm just not even thinking of moving back. BMA is constructionist, but as we're doing all the schools, we also got BMA to take into account consolidating the two schools into one building.
Mhm.
So we got 2 schools to empty out.
Question.
Yes, sir, Mr.
I
Chair.
just wanted to clarify that last statement you made. Harding, Bassick, BMA.
Correct.
Is Harding moving somewhere? Is somewhere moving
On-
into
on-
Harding?
Thank you. Yeah.
It's just Bassick is
I
moving to a
misspoke.
new facility and
Bassick
BMA is moving
moving to the
into that
same
new
new-
facility.
Correct.
And do we have
Nothing to do with Harding,
do we know what's happening to the BMA
except for the bus.
at this point?
So at this point, no, I know what was planned on happening previously, but that part specifically was not voted on at a board meeting. It was just the collaboration of both Bassick and BMA into the new construction, but it was not voted and clearly determined what was going to be happening with the BMA, the current BMA site.
Yeah, you can anticipate.
Which was originally a transitional building,
Correct. That was originally a transition.
construction we were doing throughout the city.
Right. So
And I would assume that need might come up again.
correct. So what the conversation was prior to me coming in was once BMA moves to the new construction for the Bassick BMA site, that building would be used for classical studies, Magnet Academy, as well as the annex, that they could be in one building together.
And you're mentioning classic studies. What was the second one?
The annex class, because they have an annex, so they're in 2 different buildings,
Yes, I know that.
so that they would actually move into.
Annex, I got you. I misunderstood. I've been to both buildings. So that's next on the bill. That was what I was gonna ask, is I know there is a list. I know that list is not set in stone
Mhm.
of what's coming next.
And it is not set in stone as of yet. So what Mr. Garcia is working on is the 5-year capital plan to look at what the fundings are, to talk about what will be happening next. But it's not set in stone that will be the next one for transitional purposes, for moving it or relocation or remodeling.
Right, and I'm not sure that, because as far as I know, BMA is still in great shape.
Yes, BMA is
So-
just the buildings. I know he talked about the classical studies in the annex, that they were not working at full capacity and that they needed lots of repairs to be able to brought to that 100% capacity.
Right, yes, so I would be thinking, yeah, because I'm thinking, I don't anticipate the board going against, because we've discussed it before, but we just never voted on
Yeah,
it.
just wanted-
And I say, we know classical studies needs its own building for both schools. And because we're paying rent I don't
Correct.
remember I don't recall the rent for the annexes,
The annex, yeah.
but,
Well, I also,
and also the kindergartens don't get to.
adding my own personal history, I also know that Blackham was high on the list. But that's gonna be a different problem because it's a bigger school.
It's a much bigger school.
Right, yeah, I mentioned the condition of BMA because I don't anticipate a major renovation or capital funds being involved
No,
very much. at all.
not for, you're talking about for the current site.
Correct.
No, that there is no conversation about that as of yet. No.
So they'll just be moving from sort of like Bassick and BMA moving into the new Harding. Sorry, they got this all the stuff.
New facility.
New Bassick facility. Lost my train of thought. Instead of moving into a new facility, they'll be moving into BMA,
Mhm.
possibly moving, pending a vote of the board.
Correct.
Are you anticipating that, Ms. Perrin, as a permanent move or as a transitional move like that was used before?
Possibly a transitional move, because one of the things that Mr. Garcia was talking about, that we are on the docket to look at some new building constructions. So what has been asked of him is to look at the livelihood of the existing buildings across the district and to prioritize by need which ones those are, so we could determine what would be next.
So we may in fact need a big swing space,
Need what?
a big swing space.
Well, what's the capacity of BMA?
So the capacity of BMA, well, right now it houses approximately 280 to 300 students, but it can hold approximately 450 to 5.
Right, I was thinking about 500.
Mhm.
And you can see them with a population of 1,200. Blackham is not going to move there, so that's
Exactly.
a different logistical nightmare.
Correct.
It's always a logistical nightmare in school.
No, but it's been on the list for a long time. It's been jumped a few times.
Yeah.
Because it's an old building with a lot of internal problems. So I know that that's going to be a need at some point as soon as we can.
Yeah, very, very soon. And it just, being that it's one of the largest elementaries here, we don't necessarily have a swing space that we could use to house that during any type of remodel or reconstruction.
And construction in place is a mess. As we saw in
Right.
Central.
It's challenging, but doable. And one of the things you can do is find like large meeting spaces, like gymnasiums and cafeterias. Some of that work can be done over the summer in new construction so that there's safe swing space inside the building. It's less than ideal, but it
Wait,
can
we
be
went
done.
sideways.
We played Rubik's Cube here in Central.
Right.
It's Latin, a little simpler, that you
You have two sides. If you only moved one side out.
High school families.
Hi.
Just wanted to make you aware of a few important announcements.
I cannot hear nobody.
May the 25th.
Yeah, they got announcements going on.
Also, our counselors are
No, it's Dave Catalina.
Everybody, please excuse the muted portion. We've got parent conferences going on this evening and there's announcements breaking us up. So we just muted while they were making announcements. And now we're back to your regularly scheduled programming. And we got, where were we? I know we went off on a little tangent on the side about.
Albert's hand is up.
Mr. Benahan's hand up. Thank you, Mr. Trevor. Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just hear what you're talking about Bassett and BMA and you guys from all the board members. I was the only one saying, no, I was not agree because that was not the plan. But the former superintendent, he has some different plan, but he was telling me and tell the other board members. But the point is that right now, Ms. Perry, you said we have 200 something in BMA, and I believe Bassett has to have around almost 1,000 students. So when they do the new Bassett High School in over there in UB, the number's gonna go up. So my question is, and whoever live in that district around, let's say the new Bassett High School, because it's a policy, whoever live around that's the school they're supposed to go, the number's gonna go up. So it's gonna be like some issues like whoever trying for another kids for another school. You know, we're gonna have the like a little drama we have, you know, before with what's the name, the school, you know, hookah schools. We don't want that situation to happen again. So I don't know why we still trying to have two schools together. That I would never agree. I never agree. And like I say, and I'm going to keep saying, BMA has so many things inside to be transferred to other school. We talk about this, we discuss about this, and I hope we're gonna talk about this because it's gonna be it's gonna be a big issue. And I keep saying, and have two schools together. So it's gonna another thing is too, they're gonna change the name because BMA and Bass is gonna be together. So what's gonna be the new name?
Yeah,
That's
Mr.
gonna be
Benahan,
a
I'm sorry.
little issue.
Mr. Benahan, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's not this not the scope of the agenda. That's school naming policy and all that. That'll be another one. That's also something you could refer to this committee as well if you want to look at the name of the school and stuff like that. With today's sole agenda item, not sole agenda item. The agenda item we're discussing at this point is the school moving policy and trying to stop what happened with the Harding School and everything. All your issues may be valid or may not be valid, whatever. But that's a discussion for another day, sir.
I understand, Mr. Chair, but they would come discuss a few things. It's not in the agenda. That's why I added. But I understand. I understand your point. Thank you. We're going to be discussing another committee. Thank you.
Mr. Macaron?
I'm okay. I don't have any questions.
So my suggestion would be at this time is that we determine when we're going to meet and determine who's going to be part of that small work group and determine when we can meet so we can start framing this information out. I'm sure Dr. Baldwin and I will have something by the time we meet as well. So to we share and start with the wheels turning. I think that would be a good idea. So specifically, I'm sure that you'd like to be a part of this, Mrs. Sakalovich?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Draper, are you interested?
One moment, please. I apologize. Not that I don't want you, but we got to avoid creating a forum because otherwise then we got meeting notices and such
Got it.
involved with that. So no disrespect.
I would ask that does it make sense to have somebody like Mr. Benahan on that committee or somebody who is involved with the building, school building committee from the board?
Right, that would make sense.
For me, much as I appreciate the offer, I have opinions certainly, but I don't want to presume. Did you say we're the school building people?
Mr. Benna?
Oh, and Miss Brown.
Ms. Brown, yeah.
So maybe we should check with her first.
And
And
then,
care of
the
chair of this committee and.
right, yeah, maybe offer to the chair first and then Mr. Benahan. And it's not like we're deciding anything anyway.
I
We're
understand,
gonna bring this.
understand, but I'm
Not
coming,
big,
I'm late to the conversation.
Yes, I understand. So yeah, that's good. If you could reach out to Ms. Brown, or I could reach out to Ms. Brown and ask if she wants to be. And then this way, when we bring something back, it's cleaner because
If you,
this is just like knocking stuff over. Right now.
if you need another body, I am available, but if there are others who are interested,
Right.
then that's fine with me.
Right, yeah, it's just this process right here that we're discussing right now, and we're basically throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks right at this point. And this is definitely better accomplished on a work group level rather than at the committee level. This is just a skeleton, trying to get stuff together, but there's gonna be a lot of ideas tossed and things.
Mhm.
You want to be able to throw in an idea that might be stupid and not be ridiculed for it or whatever have you. And that's actually best done. And then everything comes back to committee and it gets vetted and then we improve upon what the skeleton develops.
Okay.
It's not I think it's
Do we need a motion to do that?
yeah, let's just make it clean. Motion, I'll entertain a motion to form a small work group consisting of Dr. Baldwin, Ms. Perrin, myself, and either the chair of the board or Mr. Benahan, depending upon.
Ms. Brown's opinion.
Correct.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Yes, Ms. Perrin.
I also want to make sure we include Mr. Garcia from facilities.
Yes.
Well, you can invite anyone.
Yeah, you can invite anybody.
Okay.
As long as we don't get a quorum of board members.
I
everything
would
else-
accept a friendly amendment with empowering that group to bring in whoever they think would be helpful to the discussion.
I'll move that. Go all in favor, aye.
Aye.
So that's good. All right, so now the next agenda item, I guess it's pretty similar to what we discussed. But the school bit is gonna be a little different because coming up with the budget cuts and all that, we may have to actually consolidate schools. This is the Siegel's word that I hate. This is actually close schools due to lack of financial capability to keep them open. So they won't be moving into new schools, they'll be consolidating schools, but we'll still have the problem left behind materials that need to be disposed of. So I guess we could fold, rather than have a whole discussion here, we could fold that into the other work as well, unless
Yeah.
somebody has some great ideas that we could sketch it out right now.
No, I would fold it in, but I would also, remind the board, you have a policy framework that exists. You have a school closing policy, 3,600.
Correct, and
And then it has some administrative guidelines. And so we might want to use that as the framework and update it,
right, that's
build within.
right, that's the next thing, but the one thing that's missing is the school disposition, the property dispositions
Right,
basically speaks of obsolete books and equipment.
right,
And we're not talking about obsolescence for a lot of the stuff when we're closing down the schools.
right.
We just have to be tweaked a bit as well.
Yeah, I think that this notion of decommissioning, I think what we're discussing could go right in here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Motion to fold the next two items. School building decommissioning policy and integration of regulation 3260.1R into the work group just discussed in the prior motion.
So moved.
And I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Awesome. Okay, motion passes. That's all folded in. That brings us to the last item. Discussion of possible action replacing in its entirety policy 9171, remote board member participation in in-person board and committee meetings. Now, I brought this up because I just took this committee about 4 months ago. If we all recall, we created this policy. Can we bring up the policy online? Do you have that policy? No. It is not based.
And that first,
Policy 9171.
Happening. Thought I saw it here. Well, at any rate, we're trying to get it. 9171 said a remote board meeting policy for the Board of Education in the pandemic.
No, that's not it. It actually says policy 9171 at the top.
You can actually find it on our website. It's under Board of Education and Policies, right on it's in our packet.
Right.
You should
I don't
have
think you
that.
could access the packet. But anyway, 9171 is remote board member participation. And we created a series of restrictions. One of them being any board member may participate remotely at any regular board meeting at a maximum of up to 6 times per year from December 1st to November 30th. And we went on to create restrictions of 3 times per year in a committee for the same time period, and created additional restrictions that we have to be in person for chairing the meeting. For instance, if I was remote, I would have to drop it off on Mr. Traber since he's in the building, and I wouldn't be able to do it. So in reviewing the bylaws, after completing the run of the bylaws that the first pass bylaws, I looked at this one and I found it in opposition to the executive order and a recently passed bill. Mr. Marini, if you could go to, forget about the policy, I'm sorry, go back to the second link. No, not the second link, this second email. Does he have the second email? Yeah, with executive order 9H.
It's on the second, it's the third link.
The third link.
It's under a title, Executive Order 9H.
All right. That's it, right?
And what about it?
All right, that's, if you go to letter B under 1, can you make that bigger, please? And you can see,
No member?
yes, that's perfect. It says no member of any municipal agency, board, commission, council, or legislative body shall be denied the opportunity to participate and vote in any meeting, proceeding using remote technology if such member requests to do so. And a member of any such body may request to participate remotely in all meetings for the duration of the public health emergency and shall not be required to file an individual request for each meeting. So even if the meeting is fully in person, the board member can participate remotely. This order expired in, was proposed to expire in February. I'm not sure of the dates correct, but I do have them here. Hold on. But it was renewed several times, extended till February 2021, and codified in a public act signed by Governor Lamont on April 28, 2022. So this memorialized the right in perpetuity for a board member to attend a meeting remotely if they so request. So our policies restricting the board member to a limit flies in the face of state statute or state public act. Yes, sir, Mr. Traber.
The qualifier is at the end of the sentence, though. It says at the end of the sentence, may request to participate remotely in all meetings for the duration of the public health and civil preparedness emergency, which we just ended that period, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes, but then if Sam, you could pull up, Mr. Marini, could you please pull up Public Act? All right,
That's what
let's pull up Pullman and Comey's education law notes. This is from their blog, a law firm that actually the act.
I know Pullman.
Correct. So this act was signed. It was signed. The law was extended. It never expired.
The governor's action was extended, and then it was codified into law, you're saying.
Correct.
And did that law still include this qualifier at the end of it?
What was the qualifier?
At the very end of that paragraph,
Health emergency.
it says
No, it's for
this, there can be no limit on a person's right to attend remotely during the emergency. But if the emergency has been declared no longer, then that right would seem to be.
No, it's definitely codified. If we could bring it, I don't know if I got that. I thought I had the act.
You put it on that same email.
I'm trying to figure out which one. Executive Order 9A.
It should be under the 9H.
PDF. Yeah, let's extend it to, let's look at the, extend it to February 2021.
There's two links under there. One,
Let's try the first,
The second one, it says Pullman and Comley notes.
right there, that's the
That's the one he wants.
permanent change, yeah, let's look at that, because they explain it as well, either or could work.
And then the last one at the bottom of the page is also Pullman and Comley notes subsequent to the enactment of the law.
Correct, they might have a link in Pullman and Comey. Let's bring up the first one first. Okay.
It's the same link.
Okay,
So unless you separated out parts of it, it's going to be the same link.
but actually, I did actually run this through CABE, and they did say we are out of compliance with the governors. And they sent us requested sample law. Let's see now. Yes, okay, and I'll read out what it says. If we could go down to remote board member participation on that and raise that up. You see where I'm speaking of? Remote board member participation, if you can make that larger, please.
Yeah, it's the other way around. Board member remote.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Gracias por venir y comunicarse con nosotros y hablar un poquito más acerca de cuál es, cómo está haciendo su hija en las clases. Quiero dar un poquito de información. Vamos a tener examen de ciencia, que es un examen estatal, que se llama NGSS, que va a ser el lunes. También vamos a tener exámenes de AP. Van a mandarles más información acerca de esos exámenes en mayo. Así que papás, por favor, si pueden checar, sus hijos van a tener exámenes de AP. También tenemos fiesta. Tenemos el baile de Junior Prom, que va a ser el 18 de mayo, jueves 18 de mayo. Toda la información la pueden encontrar en nuestra página de Central, en la página web. También tenemos Senior Prom, tenemos la fiesta de seniors, que es el 25 de mayo. Nuevamente pueden encontrar esa información en la página web. Y finalmente estamos los estudiantes escogiendo las diferentes clases que van a tomar el próximo año. Ya empezaron a reunirse con sus consejeros, así que si quieren ustedes que tomen una clase en particular, ustedes se pueden comunicar con su consejero. Nuevamente, muchísimas gracias. Decana de estudiantes.
Hello? Are we still on? We still live?
Yeah, we still on, Mr. Macron. They put a mute because they do an announcement in the.
Yeah, there was another announcement.
Okay.
All right, now, board member remote participation, this is as presented by lawyers on their legal blog, education lawyers. And they read the same as I do. It says preserves an absolute right that emerged during the pandemic. Board members must, not maybe, not shall be, not maybe, if we decide they could have it for less than 6 meetings, must be provided the opportunity to participate remotely, even at an otherwise in-person meeting, such as this one. However, if one of the members loses the ability to participate, we don't have to stop the meeting for that person to join. And that's encompassed in the policy that was sent to me by CAVE for use and replacement. It's not even a matter of if we so choose. We cannot choose to continue to violate state law. I mean, this policy is no good. I mean, it should have probably been vetted a lot sooner. So that's why I mentioned before, as we create a new policy, it's imperative to make sure all our new policies are in compliance, because if there's nowhere to pull something from, if you're not pulling it from a policy from another district, if you're not pulling it from old policies, it's never been vetted. So this brand new policy that was created unintentionally violated the rights of some board members to participate in meetings. Because I know there's some board members that could sometimes only participate remotely, be it for work and all that. And all of us would suggest, and I was part of the people suggesting 6 meetings, because personally I think it's better to be here in person. But when it comes down to the law and what the legal rights of people are, my opinions have no place. So therefore, we need to at least get rid of this policy or stop following it, because it flies in the face of state law.
I would, are you reading something other than what we have here?
I read the policy. It preserves an absolute right.
An absolute right that emerged during the pandemic. That's still not clear to me whether that qualifier is in there.
The policy, we received a packet. Did you receive? I have a hard copy packet that includes the information that Mr. Sokolovic is referencing
Okay, can I get it?
from Kane.
I heard reference that. That's why I'm asking the question.
It should be in the packet as well. Could you want to bring up Kate?
I'm looking at what you told me to go look at, so.
What CAVE does say,
Packet.
the final page of their recommended policy, 9321.2, the final page has all their statutory references. The next to the last page, the second to the last paragraph says,
Not there yet, so if you could just hold on.
Sure.
The original packet or the subsequent packet? Joe,
That should be the first packet.
okay. Electronic board meetings,
Station Island.
skim through all this. What page?
so 9321.2 B.
Okay, hold on. Yep, bylaws of the board.
Yep, bylaws of the board, time, place, and notification of meetings. And then they have a policy statement. The first page of 9321.2B reads numbers 1 through 4. And then this 9321.2C, the next page, reads numbers 5 through 10.
Yep.
The paragraph after number 10. When public health conditions improve, the board may initiate a return to in-person meetings, or in the alternative, which I think means in the alternative to the lack of improvement of public health conditions, hybrid in-person meetings in which board members may either attend in person or participate remotely.
And it also references in
The alternative is a hybrid meeting.
Mhm.
It's either in person or the alternative, a hybrid,
Okay.
previously defined. And is there any specific reference to no longer restricted to the declaration of a public health emergency?
There's no other, I have not found another
No,
reference to that.
I don't think any, well, going forward in the future, that's past, we'll say, not in a pandemic anymore. But it seems pretty clear to me.
The governor has declared we're not in it.
Pursuant to PA 22-3, a board member shall not be denied the opportunity to participate and vote in any meeting or proceeding using remote technology if such a member.
Okay. I see yours. I was looking at her paragraph.
That's pursuant. This is, hey, they do policy.
I know what to do.
They live and breathe policy. They got lawyers on their staff, and I consulted them after I found this myself. in reviewing the policy.
And they concur that we can't restrict the access to a hybrid. If we're running hybrid meetings, we have to allow them unlimited remote access.
No, it's going further than that. If this meeting was totally in person and a board member wished to participate remotely, that board member shall be allowed. Shall not be in any meeting. As I say, 10 is the paragraph below that,
Yes, I understand. I
totally
read them both.
separate from the,
No, I know. Well, I'm certainly not opposed to it. I'll tell you what I have a slight concern about.
what is it?
When we started remote classrooms in the spring of COVID, knowing whether or not somebody was behind the letters is important.
And I've been a board member a long time myself. And what do you want me to do, Mike? Can do the same thing right here on the text. There could be somebody pulling the string behind the text message sitting at the meeting. So just simply sitting at home with somebody behind you doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference. And they can be behind you here. I've seen board members
That was
pull
my
it.
point. I'd just like to know they're there.
Right.
When I had students in the classroom, I wanted to see that they were there at the classroom. I didn't want
Right.
to see an image or initials up on the screen. I wanted to see the person was present.
Mr. Macaron? Oh, my minute. Mr. Macaron? You're on mute.
I'm here. I've been here.
Well, I'm not doubting Mr.
No,
How you doing,
I just.
meeting.
Hello, Mr. Traver. Hello, Ms.
Right.
Parent.
Yeah, I was just,
Oh, I didn't doubt that, Mr. Macaron. My point was just that I've always had a concern when I don't see a face as to whether there's really a person there or not.
Here's my
Right.
face. You got
hey,
it?
Mike. Yeah, no,
I know you were there. That
Right,
was
yeah,
not,
no,
I was not
okay,
questioning
right.
you.
yeah, nobody was calling you out. I was just trying to
Alright.
prove a point that there is a way to confront people.
I don't like
All
to show my
behind.
face. It's not really a beautiful one.
You look all right, Mike.
Look better than me right now.
But yeah,
All right,
to
thank
your
you.
point,
Sorry, guys.
right, but to your point, even if people aren't on the screen, there's actually, in this policy, there's actually, say, Mr. Macaron here, now, we're kind of in violation of this because every vote, when you're not visible, has to be a roll call vote in the new policy, but not in our policy. So
Okay.
the only time technically that people need to be seen and heard is when they're voting. Because there's no law or rule, or actually it was directly contradicted by the lawyer, that people don't even have to be at a meeting to vote. As long as their vote is recorded, it's there. And the vote's not gonna be recorded if we don't see their face or if they don't acknowledge their name and not acknowledge themselves.
Got it.
Sorry, we wasn't calling you out, Mr. Macker.
No, I understand.
It's just
Not at all.
just a good example. It's never been a good idea to put like names out like that, but it's just.
I didn't.
I know I did.
I didn't.
I know I did it, but I thought it was fun. Mr. Benahan, you've got some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, how many times a board member can be online? You know, what's the limit?
Now, legally unlimited. According to our
Current policy.
policy, is 6 for regular board member meetings and 3 for committee meetings.
Per committee.
Sorry, committee meeting 6?
No, committee meetings 3. And it was 6. Actually, I was involved in reducing it to 3 because there's only 10 committee meetings, but this was just going under the impression that we had the right to make those changes, which in hindsight, we did not.
So you say committee meeting 3 and 6 for board education meeting, right?
Right,
And what's
which is soon to
happened
be irrelevant.
And what happened when they passed that limit with all this the time.
What would happen under our illegal policy would be a board member would not be able to attend. And I don't know if this has affected any board members or if any board members would be comfortable in sharing if they didn't come to any board meetings because they reached the limit that was set. They wouldn't be able to participate. Which is an unfair taking away of their rights under the law.
I understand, but if we have a policy, like you said, three in the committee and 6 in the board of education meeting, and they pass, that numbers, and it's in the policy. So it's not take out the right, but we have to follow the policy. What's going to be done.
We can't follow an illegal policy. If we create a policy, 5 of us could go crazy right now and pass a policy to let board members take home all the computers and sell them in a shop. It'll be policy, but it'll be illegal and we go to jail. We can't have an illegal policy. It's just not legal. We can't break the law.
No, I'm saying not breaking the law, but what's going to be the process? What's going to be?
Right. My first proposed step is go to the full board and throw out this policy altogether and then work on this next policy or accept the policy as presented by CABE, which we'll get into in a minute after we finish realizing that this one is illegal and needs to be jettisoned to the side. Mr. Trader?
Well, I mean, as the governance committee, is it not our duty to propose changes to the policies where necessary
Correct.
that then would be discussed by us and then presented to the full board?
Correct.
Okay, so first question that I have, just in most contracts I ever dealt with, we had a hold harmless policy which said anything in here that is contrary to the law becomes subservient to the law. So do we have such language in our bylaws? Because I have not.
Not that
I must confess, I have not combed through them yet.
Right. I have.
So the underlying principle is what you've stated, which is we can't have something that is contrary to the law.
Correct.
So I would make a motion tonight that you begin working on a draft that is consistent with the help of Ms. Perrin or we haven't been introduced, so
Karen Baldwin, hi.
Ms. Baldwin, to rewrite this language so that it's consistent with the new law.
Right. And that's what CABE already supplied us with a great template. I have no issue with the template that they sent, and that's what we could discuss next. But first and foremost, we got to remove that policy from our thing. Like,
why?
Because it's illegal.
If it can't be enforced, it's illegal.
Right.
So we want to correct it. That's all. We want to replace it with a new policy as soon as possible.
But in the meanwhile, as soon as possible.
We don't want to eliminate whatever policy has. We want to create a new policy.
Right, but there's nothing in the policy that's illegal, and I don't know. I just don't like the fact that there's an illegal policy sitting on our website.
Nobody's been afflicted by it. By anybody's recollection, nobody's been afflicted. We simply want to change it. We recognize that the law has changed. We can make a motion that recognizes the law has changed and that policy needs to be revised to be consistent with the law. And, there's not going to be any adverse impact to having it in there.
All right, maybe this will be.
In my past experience, what would happen at this point in time, because so much has changed because of the Public Act relating to Freedom of Information Act and remote meetings and the pandemic, we developed a policy that had a limitation. We thought we were doing what was best in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and how we wanted to do business. Now we realize that we can have a more permissive policy, that we don't have to put these guidelines on. And it sounds like, based on what Mr. Sokolovic is saying, that perhaps the committee wants to make sure that we have this permissive approach, that we follow the state statute. And so in my past experience, what would happen is if we like the CABE policy language, we like how it defines meetings, we like how it cites the statutory reference, we would recommend that this CABE policy be moved to the full board for a full reading as our policy, and that our policy becomes replaced. That we don't have to like repeal or delete the old one. We just update it with the CABE policy. It's a good practice.
I don't disagree, except that we have not fully vetted or read
The
the
CABE,
CABE policy,
Correct.
Which is where we are now.
correct.
which is where we are now, and
Right.
I don't read on the spot legal requirements.
Well, it's been in there a couple of,
Couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so what happens is we go read it right now. We're no.
We have about 45 minutes to finish this, so I'm fine. If you want to go through it.
All right, so we got, I'm just gonna read out the,
Can I ask one other question though, before we do that?
sure.
There was a suggestion in the earlier memos from the governor's office, from FOI, that this was, the towns could still require in-person or all hybrid meetings. Is that still in there? Or am I gonna see it when we go through it?
You'll see, we still got the right to do hybrid, we still got the right to do in person, we still got the right to do all remote.
I know there are communities not doing
Right.
remote or hybrid.
Right. The June session, the June legislation, June 30, 2022, regarding remote meetings. This is what Mr. Sokolovic was referencing, this 22-3. Under the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act, public agencies, including boards of education, must make their meetings, other than executive sessions, open to the public. Last year, 2021, the Connecticut legislation passed a law allowing public agencies until April 30th, 2022, to hold public meetings that are accessible to the public through electronic equipment or through electronic equipment in conjunction with in-person meetings, such as hybrid meetings. Public Act 22-3 removes the April 30, 2022 sunset date and allows public agencies to continue to hold remote and hybrid meetings as long as they comply with the requirements under existing law, like the posting requirements. The Act also explicitly provides that effective October 1, 2022, regional school districts may hold remote or hybrid public meetings to present proposed budget in the same way as other public agencies.
Yep, I read all that stuff.
So
But that doesn't answer my, so are we, tell me where we're starting, because I don't even know if it fits into the right place in our bylaws, but just where we're starting.
Well, our bylaws will be changed to be legal, and I'm proposing we accept CABE's versions. Creates for a lot of districts, and so ourselves well-researched. Start with number 9321.2B. Might not get through it all today, but we got to start. So this way we can ensure everybody's up to date and everybody has the same knowledge. In accordance with Connecticut's FOIA, following provisions implemented so that remote hybrid meeting can occur. 1, Board of Education members shall make every attempt to participate through technological portal that can be viewable or minimum heard for each other and members of the public, which we're doing right now. The Board of Education will accomplish through use of an video conference program such as, but not limited to, Zoom, etc. It doesn't mention Teams, which we're using, but it's not limited to, so that's okay. Remember, the public can call and or submit comments or questions electronically. That's already embedded in our policy for remote board meetings. People could participate. 2, notice of the board members' virtual or in-person location when a hybrid approach is utilized shall be published through traditional means, as well as being noticed on the website no less than 48 hours in advance, which we do, with the exception of special meetings. It's 20, which is next. The district shall post agendas for 24 hours in advance for review and reference by the members of the public, which is done, and it's not illogical. The agenda will also be published on the district website, which is also done. Such notice shall include instructions to the public to attend and provide comments, which is also done at the meeting by means of electronic equipment or in person. When the board conducts a meeting other than executive session or special meeting solely by means of electronic equipment, it shall provide any member of the public upon written request, not less than 24 hours prior to such meeting, a physical location and any equipment necessary to attend such meeting in real time. The same opportunities to provide comment or testimony and otherwise participate in such meeting that such member of the public would be accorded if such meeting were held in person. Ensure that such meeting is recorded or transcribed, which we already do, excluding any portion of the meeting that is an executive session. And transcription of recording is posted on the board's website and made available for the public to view, listen, and copy in the board's office or regular place of business not later than 7 days. And for not less than 45 days after, which we already do. And if a quorum member of the members of the board attend a meeting by means of electronics, equipment from the same location, permit members of the public attend such meetings in such physical locations. That means if me and you were online.
I understand what it means.
Right,
I want to go back to number one.
okay, yeah, let's get, okay.
Let's not read through everything.
Yeah, let's just get to 10.
No.
Let's get through the whole thing, because we're gonna be back and forth for 40 minutes.
But I don't have paper to mark.
All right, we'll go back.
Just do them
What
one
is
by
the
one.
problem
Let's
with
do
number
one
one?
by one. I just want to, I
What
want
is
to
the
question it. Not a problem. I want to understand it. Provide any member of the public upon written request and submitted not less than 24 hours prior to such meeting with a physical location and any electronic equipment necessary to attend such meeting in real time. Are we providing people Chromebooks or something or laptops so that they can attend meetings?
I believe that may be embedded in the statute somewhere. But when we're in person, we don't have to provide anything. It's in the statute somewhere. I don't have it highlighted or anything like that because I didn't know the question was coming up. But if we're meeting at all in person, we don't have to provide anything, as long as there's an opportunity for the person to attend.
As long as they're always hybrid,
But if they're always hybrid,
we're all right.
that leaves,
So 4 is only if it's strictly solely by means of electronic equipment.
correct, because if we're ever in person, we're not abridging any rights. If somebody wants to come sit in here, they could sit in here.
They have that opportunity. Okay.
Correct.
All right. We get
And
good
and
answer.
then hopefully that situation never comes up. It's probably a rarity, but I would have to double check to see if that's actually embedded in the public act, which I probably assume it would be, and it seems kind of familiar. I don't know if it's from reading this. No. All right, so yeah, 4. Do you have any question prior to 4? Before I move on to
No.
Mr. Benahan and Mr. Macaron, do you have any questions on any of what I've read so
1
far?
through 4.
1 through 4?
No, no questions, no comments.
No question, Mr. Skolwick.
All right, number 5. The board, when conducting hybrid meetings, will make provisions to allow at least some members of the public and press to attend the same location as board members, conducting the manner consistent with public health guidance. The number of the public allowed to attend in-person or hybrid meeting, limited capacity, put in place consistent with public health and social distance guidance determined by local public health officials. So currently there are
Understand.
none. So we can have as many people as we want, but if there's a restriction, like a return to restrictions, we would have to be limited to this. And there's only 20 people allowed in the building.
Mhm.
We've got to limit 20 people here. Number 6, if the board conducts a special meeting, it shall include notice of such meeting, whether the meeting will conducted solely or in part by electronic equipment, and not less than 24 hours prior to such meeting shall post the notice of an agenda of the meeting. If such special meeting is to be conducted by means of electronic equipment, such notice and agenda shall include instructions for the public by means of electronic equipment or in person to attend and provide comments. This basically mimics a lot of the same language from
We just discussed.
this discussed. Any vote taken during a meeting at which members, this is another one we've been sleeping on. Participates by means of electronic equipment shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. This is something we haven't been doing,
Mhm.
and this is something that we need to start doing. The minutes of the meeting shall record a list of the members that attend such meeting in person and a list of members that attended by such means of electronic equipment. Now, this one I know is pretty much know is embedded in there, but I could.
I'm not arguing. And when I read this afternoon, what I understood this to mean is we don't have to separately email in our votes.
No, that's different. That's a whole different bylaw. That bylaw has to do with votes of officers.
Okay, I got you. I understand. That's for a special type of vote.
Correct.
Okay.
But 8, any member of the board or the public who participates orally in a meeting of the board conducted by means of electronic commitment shall make good faith effort to state your name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such member participates orally. That means, as far as your prior point about if a person, we can't tell if a person's here or not. If Mr. Macaron, currently, I'm using you as an example because your initials are up there right now. If you got a comment or something like that, you have to state, yeah, Mike Macaron speaking, I blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And that's less for us. That's more for somebody who's watching from
Correct.
afar.
Because we may have 3 or 4
Because
or
they may
5.
not know
Correct.
who's speaking on the symbols.
Absolutely. And this is all, it seems all common sense.
Yep.
To help out. Executive session will be held when necessary for statutory reasons in a second video conference meeting only open to Board of Education members and those individuals determined by the board as necessary to participate in such executive session, which
Understand.
again, is not all. Pursuant to PA 2223, board members shall not be, this is important, shall not be denied the opportunity to participate or vote in any meeting or proceeding using remote technology if such board member requests to do so. So anybody signing on to a Teams meeting is requesting access to the meeting as a board member, as an elected official of the city of Bridgeport. Okay, and then there's a whole paragraph. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to, I read this as saying they have to be at the meeting. They can't just vote.
No,
You had made a comment earlier
no,
about
that's not what to say. It's just saying you're not allowed to access.
the opportunity to participate and vote,
And,
not or vote, to participate and vote
right,
in any meeting. Yes.
so they don't have to participate to vote. You could walk in, you walked in here, I don't want to say that. If you were to walk in here right now, you would have the right to vote on,
Yes.
if we want to push this out.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought
I'm
you were
not
saying, I
saying-
thought you were saying that, question the opposite.
Yes.
And
No.
it preserves both rights, the right
Yes.
to participate
Yes.
and the right to vote.
Yes.
But that right to vote is regardless if you participated or not.
Which is true in person.
Correct. Okay, and then when public health conditions approved, the board may initiate a return to in-person meetings or hybrid in-person meetings in which board members may either attend in person or participate remotely. In hybrid meetings, members of the public and press will be allowed to attend up to capacity limits. We've discussed, we've heard that before. The social distance guidelines based on public health. Option and instruction on how to access Board of Education will be posted on the website and/or we would insert a new language there. And then there's all the next page has.
So
all-
are you looking for a motion to substitute this language for the existing language?
Correct, but before I do so, there's also one thing in our bylaws that may or may not be illegal, I didn't get clarity on, is the chairperson at a hybrid meeting have to be in person. And then Kate has suggested if we want to keep that, to check with legal counsel. So
The statute recommends that the superintendent and the board chair and the secretary appear in person. The statute recommends that.
recommends, but doesn't,
It doesn't mandate.
But our bylaw says the operating chair must be present.
correct.
So if Mr. Sokolovic is not here tonight, I'm the only other member of the committee present, so I would have to chair the meeting,
Correct, and that's how we have it covered.
which is fine. I don't see it doesn't contradict this language, so we may need to keep that language you're saying in our bylaws.
It depends on the feeling of the whole board. I could basically go either way. I'm always in person, but if I had to be hybrid and I would not be objecting to passing it off on somebody, or alternatively, we have the right to have the whole meeting remotely.
It was new to me when I participated in my first meeting to see that be the case, but it seemed logical to me because the public or whoever may be viewing from outside wouldn't necessarily know who's running the meeting if they couldn't see.
Correct.
So.
Right,
me,
and
that's-
and
that
I'm
makes sense.
right, I'm inclined to agree, it should probably stay as, would have to just vet that portion through just really quickly through legal. I hate incurring legal costs, but no reason, and it seems it will fly, this, if we can, through Ms. Brown, ask.
So you'll do it through Ms. Brown.
Right, yeah,
Okay,
through
perfect.
Ms. Brown or, well, actually, the superintendent also has the right to go through legal counsel if it's, but not to vet the whole policy, that's already, Gabe
Right.
already done that.
Right.
Just if those two pieces with the, in the current law, in our current bylaw,
Mhm.
those two pieces are legal, we can insert them into here, but, so far here, Mr. Traber will be in favor of keeping it. Mr. Macaron, how do you feel about keeping the chair required to be in person to run a meeting?
I agree.
Chris has to, and I'm in the middle, so I guess. So I'll make a motion to substitute Cabe's recommended policy for our bylaws, with the exception of the portion of our bylaw relating to the chair having to be in person at a hybrid meeting. Get it all?
Yes. I second that motion.
The macaron? I mean, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and I'll send this off to Ms. Brown for inclusion in not the next meeting, but the one following that, because I believe we got a heavy agenda already.
And this is, you want Ms. Brown or Ms. Parent to check on our current 9171 and the component that says the chairman of the board or committee may participate remotely in an in-person meeting, but when doing so may not function as the chair.
Correct.
That's what we want legal
Yes.
clarification on. Okay.
And that's all I said. Right? Yes, and now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, second, all in
Second.
favor? Aye.
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 All right, everybody signing out and coming back. You gotta sign out, coming to the next meeting, and I'll see y'all in a minute.
Good to see you all. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.